So I'm going to go over the notes that I came up with, the principles and the concepts that I derived from playing the game Hypermaze. Now, the principles that I derived, I didn't just come up with them to be cute, but I actually had to come up with them. I was forced to come up with them in order so I could keep track of where I was going and where I was coming from, in case I needed to go back. I had to come up with them just to simply navigate. So the notes do have a functional purpose. The concepts do have a functional purpose. And it kind of reflects, it kind of ends up reflecting the kind of ideas that mankind comes up with so to help them navigate through life, right? And as you see it, kind of try to make the connection with that, as I will do in the video. So in order to try and understand the fourth dimension, in order to try and visualize it, I've been playing this game Hypermaze, and it's something that I played before. I continue to play it. I didn't want to play it without having some footage of me playing it, of the gameplay, because as I'm playing it, I'm learning things and I'm taking notes. But I didn't get to make a video of the gameplay, but I did take the notes. And instead of just telling you the notes of what I discovered, of the stuff that went through my mind as I contemplated the fourth dimension, instead of just saying the notes, what I want to do is play the game and see where these notes come up in the game, so I could explain how I got these notes according to the gameplay. Even though I didn't get to record the original footage of how I got these ideas through the gameplay, I will try to explain where I got them by playing the game. So here we go. Alright, so I already explained the feature of having a 3D maze, a regular 3D maze, no fourth dimension, nothing weird, it's just a cube, of playing a 3D maze with the capacity to says right here. Here, let me pop out the brush here. With the ability to get rid of the 3D cameras there. So we're gonna get rid of that. And what that does is that you can play a 3D maze without being able to look up or down. So it's kind of like it's a 2D experience with by using two cameras. There's a 2D experience in a 3D maze. So that's kind of the same effect that we'll have when we go into the 4D maze, and when we're visualizing regular space through the regular 3D space in a 3D maze. So I'm going to check that off. I'm going to do a 3D maze with a 2D experience. Let's start off small so that I can go over these notes with you. So here we have a 3D maze, and the first thing that I do every time is I want both cameras to face the same direction. Right. Okay. And what I decided to do is to pay attention to either the top or the bottom, to pay attention to the world as it is, to pay attention to that as the real world. So the top, so I'm going to choose the top because the bottom has blues, and I like blue because my favorite color is blue, and I kind of associate it with like new age woo woo, like spirituality stuff. So I'm gonna consider blue to be the magical realm. So the top camera will be the real world, and so that's what I decided to do. So let's take a look around in the real world, right? Let's see. When we take a look around in the real world, we see how it looks like. Okay, there's a space right there, right? There's a room right there, and there's some room right there. Okay, good. Okay, so we're familiar with everything. But something that we have to pay attention to is in the bottom, and so I'm paying attention to that. And as I'm exploring, I see the bottom screen. and there's blue walls, right? Now, those blue walls, it doesn't tell me anything about the world, the real world of the top camera as I see it, but it does tell me where the ascension points are. So in the points where one could switch to another plane, to another dimension, right? So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it, so that I could navigate through this maze without getting confused. So I do acknowledge the bottom screen, but I focus on the top screen. And so this kind of gives me the idea of well, first I'll get you used to that, and then I'll go to the first point. So I'm looking around in the real world, right? And I see over there, and there's walls right there, so that means that there is nothing weird about that area. But when I turn this way, here, let me make a note right here. I see there's walls right here. These walls are covering right here. So in the real world, there's nothing weird about that point right there, or this point right here, or the point where I'm at right here. So there's nothing weird about it because everything's covered, everything is normal. You can't go any weird places from there. But when I turn this way, if you notice, in the spiritual realm, let's call it the spiritual realm for now, there's an opening right here in this area. And not only that, but I started keeping track of this. The lighter blue, it has to be up, and the darker blue is going to be down. Now, this is a 3D maze, so it might as well be up and down. But when we're doing a 4D maze, there's going to be up and down already, so we can't call it that. Because if we call it up and down, then this is another type of up and down in a 4D maze. So what I started calling them is ascension point and descension. So ascension and descension instead of up and down. Now there's actual names for, in a 3D world, there's forward, back, right, left, up, down, and there's two other words. I can't remember what they are, but there's names for them for the fourth dimension. But because I don't know those names, I'm just going to call it ascension, descension. So because right here in the bottom screen, you kind of notice that there's a wall missing right there. You know that in this spot right here, there's an ascension point. So I keep track of that. There's an ascension point right there. Nothing weird about that area. And there's an ascension point right there. So right here where I'm standing, you notice that there's this wall missing. So right where I'm at, there's an ascension point. Let's turn to my, oh gosh, I can't control this. Let's turn to my left. There's nothing weird about that. Everything's covered. And let's turn to my right. And there's another ascension point right there. So far in this place, in this plane, in this floor, there's 3 ascension points. One where I'm standing, one right there, and another one back there, back over here, right there. So we have to explore these ascension points. So this is where we go into the new dimension. So the top camera is we're going to be considering the real world. In the bottom camera, it's kind of like the spiritual vision, where you can see where you can ascend and descend. So let's go to this ascension point right here. Now, in order to keep things consistent, this is just to make sure that I don't get lost, right? I want to ascend in a way that doesn't affect anything else, doesn't affect anything in any other direction. So in order to do that, the only reason why I'm going to face that way is to ascend, and then I'm going to be facing the same direction, because if not, I get confused in the top camera. So let's ascend. So we ascend, and the camera goes back. Now I'm in another plane, and oh, look, there's the exit. Okay. So I can see the exit from the bottom, but in the real world I don't see the exit yet. But what I do know is that there is a descension point where I'm at, because I just ascended from that place. So of course, if I descended from there, there's got to be a descension point where I'm at, because I ascended into that world. So I go one. So gosh, there's a descension point right where I'm at. You can see it there, and there's nothing in that spot right here. So there's a descension point right here, and there's nothing right there. So I'm going to descend and face the same direction I was facing in to keep everything the same. And now I see the exit. So we'll go to the exit. So thinking about it in this way, that there's celebration. Yes. Thank you. Thinking about it in this way of having descension points and ascension points. I forgot what I was going to say. Let's move on. All right, yeah. So thinking about it in this way and having ascension points and descension points, of course, you got to keep things consistent, right? So it's so that I don't get lost. So what I started doing is that I made sure to keep the lighter blue, the ascension points right here. Also because later on in the game, if you make too many moves, the colors go away, and so it's a lot more confusing. So I'm keeping the ascension, the ascension, the signs, the ascension color on the left, and the descension on the right. So that I don't just recognize it by color, but I can actually, because of the position of where the walls are, I can see where I'm going. So I keep everything consistent, because if not, then I'm going to get lost and I'm going to get confused. So that's a 3D maze. So let's go over my first point here. As I'm doing plenty of these mazes, okay, so let's take a look around in the real world. So there's that, right? And it just looks like a hallway. And then there's kind of a turning point, and there's another hallway right there. So it looks pretty much the same. There's a descension point right here. There's this. Ooh, let's see what's going on here. So you can see there's a descension point right here. So when you get to the end of the hallway, there's a descension point, and right where I'm at, you see the wall is missing. There's another descension point. So let's. Oh no, let's not descend yet. Let's keep exploring here. So right where I'm at, there is no descension point, but there is a descension point. If you can see, there's two walls missing. There's a wall missing right there and a wall missing right here. So that means that there's a descension point right here and another descension point at the end of the wall. So there's 4 descension points right here in this wall. Which one should we explore first? I say let's start. So let's consider that this is our home, because this is where we started. Let's start by exploring that last place right here. Okay. All right, so here we are. Remember this place. This is our home. Really, if you try to do this on your own, you know why. You got to keep track of everything that your mind sees, and you have to, in order to really navigate it in a way that you know where you're going, you have to keep track of it this way. You have to give things names, and so this is why I'm doing this, to be able to navigate it. So let's descend. Oh, look, I take a look at it. Okay, basically, let me show you what happens here. Let's return to the real world. There's nothing, and in the real world, you're all trapped inside. So that's what happens when you go into a descension point, and it looks like there's walls on top and on the bottom. Anyways, I'm not really going to explain that. All right, so we went through the first descension point. There was nothing there. Let's step right here, and let's descension point. I know I don't really need to go there, but just for consistency's sake, I'm going to show you what the real world is like once you descend in that area. Okay. All right, so we're back in the hallway. Okay, so let's go to this descension point right here. Descend. Let's descend into this world. Ooh, this world is a lot more complex. Okay. Okay, so there's no, so the only ascension point is right where I'm at, and there's nothing there, and there's nothing there. So I could go back to our home, to where we were. And the last spot to explore is this one. So let's descend and face the same way that we were facing before. Okay, so we can forget now that we've explored all the points in the last hallway where we started off. Now we can move on from there because this is the last point and there's nothing there, so we can move on. This is our new home right here. Oh, and look, and where we are, we don't have to, there's an ascension point right there, obviously. There's a wall missing right here and a wall missing where I am right now, which is where I came from. So that means that there's an ascension point right here and another ascension point where I'm standing. All right, and there's nothing here. And there's nothing there, but there's the exit right there. Yes. So this is easy. If you look at it right here, it's 3D, and it's a small maze. So we're starting off easy, and this was taking me time. This was taking me a lot of time to get through it, and the stuff that I'm telling you, it took me a while to figure out how to keep track of where I was going in order so that I could get through the maze. Because remember, I'm trying to get the 2D experience in a 3D maze. And I'm not only trying to figure out, because like you could actually just do a 3D maze with one camera, but I'm trying to figure out the principles of how I navigate a 2D maze, a 3D maze with a 2D experience. I'm trying to get the principles of that so that I can use them when I move on to the 4-dimensional maze with a 3-dimensional experience. So that's what I'm doing. And here's a few things that I noticed. So let's cut right there, and I'll show you something else. I'll go over the notes after I make a new section here.